Hello, I'm a trombonist based in Somerset, and this video is my contribution to the 66ofus.uk. I'm going to talk to you about the trombone just as well. Here is one. This is a traditional B-flat tenor trombone, and it comes to bits like so. So, as you can see, the trombone is comprised of two bits, the bell section and the slide section, and they go back together like that and are held securely by this screw piece here. There's one more important part of the instrument, absolutely crucial. It's called the mouthpiece. Arguably, it's not part of the trombone as such, but the instrument won't function without it. So this is the mouthpiece, and it drops in the end like that. So there's the trombone, and over the remainder of this video, here with my part-grown lockdown comedy beard in my home, I'm going to show you the absolute basics and give you some insight into how you might go about getting your first notes. So that's the trombone itself. The slide is extremely delicate, I should say that at the outset, and the walls of the outer slide, the tubing, are very thin, and it's very easy to dent the slide. And if you put a dent in the slide, because the distance between the outside slide and the inside slide is very small, a dent can stop the slide moving smoothly up and down. So it's very important you don't knock the slide on anything, especially the rim of the bell, which it sits quite closely to. At the end of the instrument, we have this simple little lever valve here, which is called the water key, and it lets out condensation that collects inside the instrument from our breath. There's a bit of exterior condensation. As we blow into the instrument, we're blowing hot air into a cold tube, and that condenses and gathers down at the bottom of the slide here, and eventually you get sort of popping and bubbling sounds, and you have to let the water out with this little device. So you'll see me doing that later. I just thought I'd get that detail out the way as well. At the other end of the trombone from the water key is the tuning slide. This is a very much tighter fitting, slightly slower to operate slide, and what this does is enables us to change the pitch of the entire instrument to align with that of any other instruments we're playing with, for example, piano. So there's your trombone. And in order to get a note out of the trombone, we have to produce a buzz. And that buzz is brought about by driving air up with our six-pack through a small gap between the top and bottom lip. And as the air flows through that gap, it sets the top and bottom lip into a vibration, like so. And what we do is do that into the mouthpiece, which sits on the trombone, and we get a note. Now, in order to produce a buzz, we have to form what's called an embouchure here. And embouchure is a French word referring to the muscle structure that we use to play an instrument. To form an embouchure is more straightforward than you might realise. I can describe it to you. Top and bottom lip are slightly pursed. The corners of the mouth are tucked in and slightly down, like so. And those muscles there are sort of focused inward to hold that little gap. And further out here, the muscles of the chin are held firm, and the muscles either side of the nose here, which we use to make a sneering expression, they're pulling up slightly. So we have the muscles of the upper and lower lip working to focus inward around to make that hole for the air to flow through, the right shape. And we've got the muscles further out, pulling slightly against them, beneficially to form a sort of tension, outward and downward versus inward. And that combination of muscles gives us tremendous control over the tension of the embouchure. And the tension of the embouchure is what makes the pitch of the notes. All a bit complicated, you might think. Well, it doesn't have to be, because if you think of yourself sucking air in through a straw, you'd probably make a face just like an embouchure. You think of holding a straw there and sucking inward. That's pretty much the face we're after. And then just think of reversing the airflow back in the opposite direction. Notice I said sucking through a straw to start with, rather than blowing, because if I'd said imagine yourself blowing through a straw, you might have thought, oh yeah, and puffed your cheeks out. But puffed out cheeks are something that as brass players we don't want. So, there's your embouchure. Think of sucking up through a straw. Imagine then you remove the little straw and you're left with a small hole here that you blow through, driving the air through with the stomach muscles here. And if we do that into the mouthpiece, with a little bit of trial and error, you can get a sort of buzz to happen. Experimenting slightly with how close the top and bottom lip are together. They shouldn't touch right in the centre, but by adjusting how close they are together and how quickly we're blowing the air through, we'll eventually get a sort of note to come out. Airflow is everything to a trombonist. The flow of the air is as important as, for a violinist, the flow of the bow across the strings. Without the air we have nothing. No air, no buzz, no note. So, we buzz into the mouthpiece, which sits in the trombone, and then the trombone takes that buzz and shapes it into the familiar, authentic trombone sound. Right. It's important to hold the instrument properly as well. I'll just turn my chair slightly here. The grip for the trombone is quite important. It doesn't sit on the left shoulder and it doesn't rest on the ball of the left palm. Note that shape. Now, if I take my left thumb and place it on that bar, which we call the bell stay, and then I put my index finger up there by the mouthpiece, and then here, where there's a little sort of rectangle formed by the slide stay, the stay on the side here, and this cross member as well, if I put my 3 remaining fingers through there, that's how we hold the trombone. It basically hangs off these 3 fingers and is balanced by the finger with the assistance of the thumb. You'll have noticed that the slide hasn't moved, it hasn't fallen off, even though I've let go of it. That's because there's a little locking device at the top of the slide which keeps it in position until it's unlocked, at which point it can move freely up and down. Or if you're not paying attention, you can undo that and it'll go flying off the end and crashing off into something which we don't want. So, there we are, we hold the trombone, keep the slide lock on until we want to move it. We buzz into the instrument and we may, at first attempt, get a rather strange fuzzy note to come out. Usually the first note that you'll manage to get out of a trombone is an F. You'll find that out probably because, well, if you don't play any other instrument, when you start you'll have a tutor book, and that book, as well as teaching you the trombone as you go along, will be progressively teaching you to read music as well. And the easiest note to get out of a trombone to begin with, when you have barely had any chance to try forming an embouchure, is an F. If your embouchure is a little bit more relaxed and a bit looser, you may find you get a different note, one called a B flat. And that will probably come out in a slightly fuzzy way like that as well. You'll notice they're both in the same position on the slide. I haven't moved it because the way the trombone works is by changing the embouchure tension, we get a variety of notes without moving the position at all of the slide. The slide itself, once we allow it to move, has 7 positions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. And we find them by feel. And by finding the right position and the right embouchure tension, we get all manner of, a whole variety of different notes. And we can play a series of different notes in each position, and by choosing the right combination of slide position and embouchure tension here, we get we can play any note we particularly want to, from the lowest on the instrument right up to the highest. As I said, the more relaxed the embouchure is, the lower the notes you'll get. So if I make a face more like this, with my jaw down and a bit forward, and my bottom bit particularly feeling more relaxed, I'll get lower note. And if I really relax my embouchure and get my jaw right forward, and this takes a bit of experience to get these notes, you can get some extremely low notes on the trombone, which we call the pedal notes. And you see the position my embouchure ended up in then, very relaxed and down and low. If, on the other hand, I increase the tension greatly in my embouchure by making more face more like that, my lips tighter, still leaving a hole here. The hole is very important. You've got to let the air through, but making the embouchure a lot more firm, and by blowing the air much faster to make a higher pitched buzz, you can get far higher notes. Right up there. And that's all done just by changing the facial tension in the embouchure here. So that's how the instrument works. And as I said, it's likely that the first note you get out of the instrument will be an F. But if you pick it up and you really blow fast and have your embouchure a little bit more firm and are really blowing the air through, well, you might get another B flat, not the low one that I played before, but a slightly higher one. One octave higher. The trombone itself is called a B flat trombone because the lowest note you get with the slide closed in first position is a B flat. And so when you start off, the notes that you will be encouraged to play first in your trombone tutor book will be notes of the B flat scale. They're the easiest ones to start with because they align with the pitch of the instrument. So as I said, the first note you might get might be that F, and then putting the slide out not to second position but to third, we get E flat, which is the next note down from F in a B flat scale. Then D in fourth position, just beyond the bell. don't use fifth to begin with either, but we go out there to sixth position, we get C. And then we come back into first position for B flat. So, just playing those first 5 notes of that scale, slide going like that, all over the place. So that is, that's fundamentally the trombone and how it works and how we go about getting the notes out of it. And playing any musical instrument to a good standard is a feat of coordination, and I would implore you to seek expert help if you want to try the trombone. I hope this little video has given you some insight into how it works, and I hope that you might look at it and think, okay, I might give that a go, in which case find yourself a good teacher, and best of luck to you. A few more things I would add. It's very, very important that when you try to form the embouchure, you try and stick to the shape I showed you. You do occasionally see people playing with a face like this, but that really can cause a lot of problems later on, and it's best avoided. Keep to that embouchure shape that I described earlier. And other thing I would say that's very important is that you should not press the mouthpiece hard against your lips either, because it just cause bruising, inflammation, and make it all very uncomfortable. I pointed out that the notes we get out of the trombone are by pushing air out with our stomach muscles, and for the first few notes you try and play, that's a good way to get started, just pushing air through, see what notes come out. But very quickly you'll notice that the note beginnings, if you just blow alone, are a bit vague. And what we do to make the note beginnings a bit cleaner and more precise is we use our tongue, and we make the tongue move back from the upper teeth and gum just at the point where we drive the air with our six pack. And we say, if you imagine the word door as in front door, but with no R on the end, and then not using your voice box at all to make any sound, you just get, and if you do that exactly in time with the air push, you get much cleaner note beginnings. So here we are without the tongue, a little bit fuzzy, and if I add the little articulation to the note, we get nice clean note beginnings. So there we are. That's the trombone, how we get the notes, how we get higher notes, and how we get lower notes. I've shown you the pedals, and one other little thing I would just point out is that the trombone is a very, very versatile instrument. As well as in the orchestra, you get it in the brass band and the military band. You get it in jazz ensembles, and especially over the last few years, quite a bit of solo repertoire has been built up for the instrument as well. So it's very versatile, and as a trombonist, you won't have to look far to find an ensemble that might want your services. Anyway, there we are. I hope that's been of interest. Thank you very much.